This is Sexy Funny Raw, where we chat all about the world of sex, from dating and relationships all the way to the adult industry itself. I'm Silvia Saige, and this is my Pornspective, answering all the questions you weren't even brave enough to ask Google. Get ready, because Sexy Funny Raw starts now. Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Funny Raw. I am your host, Silvia Saige. Joined in studio with me, of course, is my co-host, Dr. Eddie, giving us his public health perspective. Thank you, Dr. Eddie. And in studio, you guys, we are very warm welcome to writer, comedian, and friend, Kristi McHugh.
All that applause every
They
time.
love you. They do. And now they don't love you. All right, so you guys, today we are talking a topic that's come up to me on TikTok a few times recently, so I wanted to address it. And it is sex drive or numbers. Everyone is so concerned with this body count number. I've had so many people be like, oh, does work count against your body count? You know, what is your body count at this point? I stopped keeping track in high school a very long time ago. I did used to keep a little book, you guys, and I would write people's names and their phone numbers because it's obviously cell phones.
And a rating system?
Not necessarily a rating, but then I noticed that my book turned from people's names to just like guy in red hat from Clancy's. You know, like it didn't have names anymore to people, and I was like, "This is."
You banged a guy from Clancy's?
Where we stopped. Oh, so many guys from Clancy's. That was my favorite bar to hang out at. I was going to Clancy's before I was 21. I had my 21st birthday there, and they were pissed.
No, because there was a
bar.
Clancy's that was like a Olive Garden. So I'm like, you went to Clancy's?
Oh, our Clancy's was like a dive bar. Yeah.
Let's not knock Olive Garden.
Yeah. Oh, I love me some Olive Garden, some endless soup salad and breadsticks. Don't get me wrong. That'll take my sex drive right up. I'll tell you right now. Or bring it way down with those breadsticks.
That's fair.
Yeah. But I don't think it. I think as an adult, obviously numbers matter less and less. I think it's more significant when you're, younger and people are actually keeping track of those things. But do you know your number, Kristi?
Why is it even important?
People are always really curious about it, right? They think, but it really stems back to like those old ideas about purity and the virginal whatever and being each other's first. I wouldn't want to marry someone that I was their first and they were my first. I think that sounds absolutely horrible.
Why are people asking you?
I
mean, why do...
Right.
You know?
It's silly. I don't think I've ever been with a virgin. Have you ever been with a virgin?
Yeah.
Were you also a virgin?
No.
No. Have you been with a virgin?
I don't... Well, a student once. Just kidding. No. Like I've taught anything in my life.
Yeah.
No. I don't think so.
Yeah. I think it would be difficult for me. I don't think I would want to have sex with someone who hadn't had sex before.
For guys, it's typically not a glorious experience.
Right.
It's super fast.
You think it's glorious for the women?
Right. Oh, I could only speak.
Yeah, I know.
Right, and so those first few times are pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then, there's a lot wrapped up into all of those things, and losing this mystical virginity that is so important within guy communities in certain time periods. Maybe less now because people are having less sex now.
Do you think it has to do with, because I feel like men sometimes like have a sense of ownership to a woman, like that's my pussy, like that's my woman, like you won't have her. And when they break up with that person, then they, throw that sexuality in that person's face. Like, oh, well, you just go be a whore then, but meanwhile, you can go sleep with whoever you want. But as a female, if we move on too quickly,
oh
then
my
that's
God, yes.
Right. You have just disrespected them in so many ways.
Yeah. That meant nothing. That meant nothing. Like,
yeah.
You broke up with me.
Right.
Well, I think these are weak guys.
Well,
right. And so guys that aren't clear on their own masculinity and their own security and not coming from a place of understanding relationships and all of those things. We're trying to move away from that kind of mentality and those kinds of old ways of thinking. But it certainly still happens, and it certainly still happens in this country in certain parts of this country for sure.
One thing that I found fascinating that you brought up in the research, Dr. Eddie, was that this is a myth, because I think we have all heard this myth throughout our lives. And I asked Dr. Eddie, is this not true? Because I have heard the myth for so long, I've also been convinced of it. That the more sexual partners a woman has, or the more, the larger penis she's with, or if she was using sex toys, that would create these longer, more roast beef lips, is the vulva being stretched out by large amounts of sex or larger penises, but that's not the case. That's a myth.
It is, in fact, a myth. But women's bodies and men's bodies, everybody's bodies changes as we get older. And so things loosen and things aren't as tight anywhere.
Right.
And that just happens to be, the genitals seems to be one of the ones where people really focus on for men and women.
But you're saying that this, this creature, whoever this person with the longer vulva lips is that you could have had this from early on in life. It's not necessarily something that has happened because you're just overused sexually.
That's also very true that men and women's genitals come in all shapes and sizes.
Right.
And it's actually quite a thing where women are reconstructing so that they can look smaller and tighter or fit into whatever ridiculous ideas they have.
It's interesting. I used to have a roommate, and she was not promiscuous in the slightest. And the reason she was not promiscuous is because she self-described herself as having those roast beef lips. And she was just so embarrassed by them that she wanted to get a surgery before being intimate with any more men because it was so bothersome to her. So I know it wasn't her sluttiness, because if anything, her lips were keeping her away from being slutty. Do you know
the
what
guy's
I'm
like,
saying?
hang on, I got to take a photo of this.
Well, I think that was the thing, is men had made her feel so incompetent because of it, or unsexy.
wow.
Well, but okay, so let's go back one quick second because everybody's learning about sex and pornography.
Right.
No one's talking about what the differences in anatomy. Even if we look at anatomy textbooks, like there's not a lot of variety there. Only recently do we have people of different skin tones, right? In some books. And so we don't get a very good base of like the variety of what the world is like. So women have never seen perhaps a circumcised penis or an uncircumcised penis, or circumcised in a slightly different way, or a curve one way or another, or different sizes and
color variations.
Of course, which is all pretty normal and common.
Yeah.
Of course, the same thing applies to the vulva.
Right.
And so it's because we don't have a comprehensive understanding of anatomy, because even people don't know where things are most of the time.
Right.
But we also don't have like a very good understanding of the differences. So, oh my gosh, that looks very weird because the 27 adult films that I've seen are 18-year-old blondes, and now you are a completely different type of woman.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Right? And so, like, I think all of these things are definitely combined there.
Yeah. But I will say, like, I've noticed for me, I mean, I got into porn at 30, and I felt back then, I looked at my vagina, and I'm like, oh, it's a cute little petite thing. But I know now, 9 years later, I'm like, I do notice that my lips not necessarily are hanging out, but they're longer than they were. And I, too, was like, oh, it's from all of the sex I'm having. It's just a part of it. But no, it's
You're
gravity.
also 10 years older?
I'm 10 years older. Gravity is changing everything.
I'm sorry, 1 year older.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, but in the same way that it would change it for men and
Of
make the
course.
ball sacks longer, make the stretch that the balls do, which, I mean, I know not a lot of people are a fan of big lips, but I'm a huge fan of big balls. I mean,
but big balls and like long, saggy balls
Long
are a little
danglies.
different too, right? And
I guess. Yeah. But I like a dingle.
Yeah.
Because I love nothing better. Tell me, Kristi, if I'm wrong in this, but when a man's like hitting it from behind and his balls swing through and like hit your clit accidentally, I'm like, woo, look at this. It's like extra hands,
Extra hands.
And what it feels like, I don't know.
He should be using his hands anyway.
Well, he should. But I'm just saying, it's just that extra little like, pa-pa. I'm like, oh, hello. Look at all these extra places being hit down here. So I'm like, why can't we make the extra lips be a special thing also? They just give you more grip, like just hanging on to you for longer.
I think we're not comfortable talking about our bodies changing.
True.
We're not comfortable talking about women aging
Oh,
in this society for sure, right?
Yeah.
And so like everybody has this idea of what everything is supposed to look like, which we kind of keep like that 18-year-old, 21-year-old body in mind.
Yeah.
Not taking into account that we're sexual beings hopefully forever.
Right.
And so everything is of course going to be pretty different.
Yeah.
and not work the same way or the right way or any of those things. And it's pretty normal.
Different tilts to different vaginas.
I have an older friend, a woman, and she's actually a nurse, but she had that procedure where they go in and they go inside and they like scrape the inner wall so she feels more stimulation. She's like,
I
feel
know
like I'm
about
a
this.
teenager all over again.
Wait, to make your
So she's feeling the stimulation inside now, like way more than she has in years.
Do you know what that is?
I don't.
I'm like, what are they doing? I mean, I feel like
It's a laser. She said they use a laser and they go in and it's like kind of like taking all the old cells off, and she's like, it's like I'm a teenager having first time sex all over again.
Interesting. So when you said surgery, I thought the surgery that like takes the lips, because they'll cut the lips and make them a little bit higher.
Well, they could do
tighter.
cosmetic surgery with all sorts of pieces.
Right. Interesting though, to make it more sensitive.
I absolutely have to look that up.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
Because I would like to know about.
She is quite frisky.
Interesting. I will say though, when like I got my breasts done, I had no sensitivity in my nipples prior to my boobs getting done, and then when they did my breasts, something changed, and I got like so sensitive to the point where like I couldn't even let a sheet sit on my nipples for a while.
Oh, really? You got more sensitive?
Way more sensitive. Huh. Yeah. I don't know. It's so interesting.
It seems like a gift.
It really
there
was.
are some people that are so
really
sensitive.
Was.
Yeah, it seems like a gift. I've never been, so it's always like.
Prior to that, I could never, like, my nipples did nothing. When someone would touch them, I'd be like, that's for you, you know? But now I can, at the time when they were new, I could have orgasmed off of my nipples. That's gone now. I can't do that, but I could.
Wow, I could never.
Yeah,
at all.
Back then.
Yeah.
Would you need a clitoral stimulation, or do you feel like you can come during sex without?
Without, absolutely.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I can probably count on one hand times I have not orgasm.
Really?
Yeah.
So you just feel like you're already sensitive.
I think all those years that I held out, I'm like making up for it.
That hold out in the beginning was totally worth it. I love
Even
that.
though it's not right for everyone.
Right. But you said once you popped, you couldn't stop though.
Oh, yeah.
So like once you got it in, you were like, oh, now it's game on.
Why not? Right.
Yeah.
That happens to lots of people. The more sex they have, like if they have sex, the more sex they want.
Yeah,
Those
I
things
agree with that.
often go together. Yeah.
But also, I think because she'd waited so long and you had this huge build up to it, I think once you took the huge, like, I just
myth.
Yeah. The myth that was the sex, and you're like, oh, well, that was it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Now I could do that with anybody because that wasn't that crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you feel like you get experimental in sex early on, or do you feel like that's something that you have to really wait for?
With a certain partner, or with
It's just in general.
In general.
Do you feel like you can spice it up early?
Oh yeah.
You can? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's weird because in my old thinking back, how everything was so conservative in my upbringing, like that would have been like absolutely not, and you're surely gonna lose a man if you like bring out fly the freak flag too soon, Yeah. But no, it's like I don't know, and it's really a woman when she does that. I think it shows her confidence in who she is.
That she knows what is going to get her off.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say you thought you were going to lose a man if you brought out like any kinky stuff or risque things in the bedroom, that you thought you just had to be this like Puritan.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In the bedroom. Sex with a sheet in between the two of you.
Missionary.
Yeah.
Right.
That's amazing. That's crazy. Okay. There are many things that control your sex drive, from biology to psychology to social cultures and influences. Several things are going to make up your sex drive that may not make up your partner's sex drive or anyone else's sex drive. So everyone will be different depending on what is actually happening in their life, stressors.
Definitely. So I'd say that it's interesting because the expectation is that a lot of guys are supposed to have a really high sex drive, and that's not always the case, right? And so that like testosterone has a lot to do with some of those things. And so like some guys just have naturally lower testosterone, or some guys, their testosterone changes over time. It's only a problem if you think it's a problem, right? But in most cases, it's probably not a problem.
What about asexual people? who claim to have like no sex drive. Is that an unhealthy place to be?
I don't think that it is. I don't know that much about that specific like demographic in that group of people. But what I would say is, as long as it works for you, is really the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
I think some of the questions and problems when we're talking about sex drive are that a lot of relationships, the two aren't equal for the partners. And so then it creates a variety of different anxieties and problems where one partner might feel that they're not attractive enough or not wanted enough, and one partner might not even be thinking about it at all, or vice versa. And so when we're talking about like the interconnectedness of relationships is when really the sex drive is an issue, unless you really genuinely feel it's an issue, at which point then that's when you go and talk to your doctor about it.
Yeah. Have you ever felt you were in a relationship where your sex drives were wildly mismatched?
Oh God, yes.
How did you navigate that?
And it's gone both ways. Like I came off of like a month tour, and I was, you're not eating correctly, and I was not as, I was softened. I was not going to the gym as much, and I was like, oh, there's no way I just don't want to be touched. And how can you even find this, attractive?
Yeah.
Like, it's all those things. And then there's also been the flip side where it was like, his friends are like, can you tame her down?
You're pulling him away from parties to suck his dick in the bathroom. Yeah. I mean, I've
That
been
was
there.
very specific,
I'm
Silvia.
going to say I've been there. That's why. Maybe that was just my story, and I'm claiming yours for my own.
It was a sushi restaurant, actually.
Yeah. There you go. See?
Are you going to the bathroom too right now? Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I think it could be fun, but also understanding that it's going to be different
For everybody.
Yeah. But what happens, what do we do when our partner is vastly different in those arenas?
Yeah,
I
that's
think
my question.
That's a really important question, and that I think only the couple can decide that. But there are things that some people do, right? Yeah. Whether that's opening it up or not opening it up, or toys, or figuring out something in the middle that's going to get you what you need, where they can be there, but they don't have to. Yeah. And I think the pressure needs to be let go a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we also have to be having these conversations for that to even occur. We don't do that.
I know we'll talk about in the next episode, so I don't want to go too far into it, but what you said is sometimes opening up a relationship, so taking out the monogamy, I find to be a very interesting conversation, especially when people's sex drives are widely mismatched. I know I have met men who tell me they have, no sex with their wives, but their sex drive is still very high, and they've had the conversations with their wives to open up the relationship, and now they are allowed to have sex with other people to meet the sex drive, but they're still with their partner and which they love and respect and don't want to leave and want to have their companionship with, but have decided for his sexual pleasure or for her sexual pleasure, whatever it may be, he, whatever it is that someone has said, okay, let's open this up and take care of your needs in another way if I'm not meeting them.
Probably say that opening up a relationship doesn't work for everybody, right? And so it certainly can be a very bad thing in some relationships and a very good thing in some relationships. And it's about communication and consent and understanding, like so many of the things that we talk about here, right? Yeah. But people aren't having these conversations. And it's kind of been like a theme this month in a lot of the conversations. But if we're not even having basic conversations, some of these higher level communication deficits that are happening aren't going to be addressed.
Well, I think something that does need to be talked about is some of the things that might cause lower libido.
Sure.
Like medications that you may be on, whether it be antidepressants.
Anxiety medication. There's a variety of different types of medications that could shift it in either direction, but often shifts it down.
Yeah.
And we don't even consider like, oh, I'm taking an antidepressant that may or may. So now I'm happier, but that doesn't mean I want to have sex more.
Yeah.
Right. And if you have like bipolar disorder or anything like that as well, all of those things which are pretty normal and common in the world, those types of medications really do shift the sex drive.
I wonder if there's any, I mean, obviously we know there's like the little blue pills and stuff like that to like.
Well, the little blue pills don't increase sex drive. They only increase
the blood flow?
Absolutely. You have to actually be turned on to get an erection. You can't just take it, especially as we age.
Yeah.
You can't just take it and have an erection. You have to take it, be aroused, and then you have a solid erection.
Gotcha.
Like
I thought it was
arousal
kind
still
of
needs
like
to
an
happen.
arousal. That's what was happening when you take that little blue pill.
No, it's just it's allowing more blood flow.
Yeah.
But all of the things that have to make the blood flow still have to happen.
Yeah. Interesting.
I remember one guy I was with, and he was so mad because I was like, just wasn't into it. And he's like, I didn't want to waste the pill. I'm like, what pill? I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
Because there's a window, evidently.
Yeah,
There is.
There is.
Absolutely. It's a few hours.
And also, like, isn't it kind of painful if you were to take the pill and you don't use your penis?
No,
there's not. Oh,
So
okay.
if you don't get an erection, now some things can go awry. You can get an erection and it won't go away.
Right.
Like there's all of those kinds of problems that happen.
Okay.
And then there's the people that take the pill that don't really need the pill that create like a psychological dependence on it, which happens in the adult film industry
Oh,
quite a bit.
Really?
Definitely.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Certainly. Well, it would be almost impossible for an average man
to get aroused.
to be aroused
Yeah.
on command for
Yeah.
7 hours,
Right.
which is whatever you're filming a scene or a movie or whatever, right? And so I've never been on film, like I've never been on set, so I don't know. But from what I understand, it's many, many hours where
Yes.
you have to be at the drop of a dime, erect
Yeah.
again.
Right.
Yeah.
And a fluffer is only going to go so far.
Yeah.
All of those things, if they even have fluffers.
No, everyone
Right?
always
Okay.
asks that question.
Okay.
And I think maybe in the 80s there
Sure,
was like somebody on the side to like jack you off.
Right.
But no, not anymore. It's like
Okay,
you
that's-
do it yourself, or like if your scene partner likes you, they might.
Scene partner.
Yeah, they might
That's
come over
fair.
and help you out a little bit, but
All
that's
right.
about it. Do you ever feel like anything in your life, though, Kristi, has like changed your sex drive? Do you feel like?
That is what I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have the same sex drive, but sometimes with like I've been in a past relationship where it just all of a sudden I did not want to be with that person anymore.
Like your attraction to them.
Sexually.
Yeah, just like
Why does that happen?
I think
But I
that's
still have the sex drive, like I'm still, but with that certain person.
probably more psychology,
Is it?
more what's going in relationships. All of those things
or the pheromones have changed.
have
or-
so much. Well, for sure,
Yeah.
right? All of those things have play such an intricate, complex role in how we get aroused, in sex, in all of those things that we kind of take a lot of those complex variables
for granted.
for granted.
But can you also regain that though?
That's what I keep thinking. I'm like, if it went, it should come back.
Because
Well,
I feel
there's
like that happens with a lot of
Tons
married
of
couples.
therapists that work through all of those things,
Yeah.
and like therapy works really well. Sex therapy, relationship therapy works really well for some people, and so all of those things are to get over whatever some of those things are, because they're not all biological. We like to think, oh, well, I'm just not attracted to you anymore, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's not it, because it's super complicated and much more complex than we give it.
And can still come back, and maybe it won't come back, and maybe that is just the end
Sure.
of it. But
Maybe you were just done with him.
Yeah. He's since moved on. I was a horrible.
But I
there
think
was a
though-
lot of psychological things wrong in that relationship.
But I think sex drive ebbs and weebs in our lives in general, let alone in our relationship, you know, because of everything else, stress
Right.
and, you know, life and everything is getting in the way of it.
But we have these expectations sometimes that it needs to be the way it was that first 6 months
Right.
forever. And that's one, not realistic. Two, nobody actually wants that.
Yeah.
Right. But we like to think that that's the way it's supposed to be. So if it's not that, now we have a problem.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want that? I mean, things
The
are great. and you
original
have
sex.
What?
Like the original sex?
Yeah.
Like the,
Well, I
in the
mean,
beginning days?
I could imagine a world where you don't want to have sex every night and not sleep, and you don't want to pull over to do it just because
Yeah.
you're in the heat of the moment. I can imagine a world where that might chill out a little bit, which
Yeah.
is pretty common in relationships. After a while, chill out a little bit, and that
Yeah.
comes naturally, I think.
Oh, I remember the days when you were with somebody and you'd have to pull the car over to have sex with them because you were just so
Definitely.
into it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
much fun.
So fun.
Getting
Yeah.
picked up from the airport,
Right?
and not making it back to
yes.
the place. Yeah.
I haven't had that. Not had that in a while. I
Me
missed that.
neither.
Oh man, way to make me lonely. Way to really destroy it over here. Way to go, Kristi. All right, let's see. Where are we?
Somebody's
moving on
listening to this
to?
podcast.
I know,
Take
right?
care of that woman.
Right? Many people. Well, it's a common thought process that many people will lose their libido the older that they get, and that, you know, women especially will lose their sex drive. However, I feel like, and you always tell me I'm not as old as I think I am, but I feel like now my sex drive has only gotten higher than it was, especially in my 20s. I was more promiscuous in my 20s, I think, but I think my sex drive in general, like I want to have more sex and
Sure.
better sex and orgasmic sex. I want to have I love, 9 things happening at once. Like that's my style of sex now, as opposed to, my 20s, it was like I was fine with missionary. And if he got off, great. And if I did, no one cared, So my sex drive has become totally different now. But you're saying just in general, because of testosterone levels or estrogen levels changing, that by nature they will decline in our
some, and it could be a variety of things, right? As we age, we often are on chronic medications. As we age, we don't have the mobility we used to. As we age, those things become less of a priority. Postmenopausal changes occur that might deprioritize it. Like that's all of that stuff is pretty well off from where you're at. But I do know that older adults still have a very satisfied, wonderful sex life.
Yeah,
right?
we hear about these nursing homes
It's
just
still
blowing
happening.
up. Yeah.
And so, but it should still be happening, and it's wonderful. But it's not going to be pulling over when you're driving from the airport.
Right.
Right? And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of planning.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, I can see it going down when I healthily accept that a little bit just for my own tiredness,
But what it's annoying, like there's an older dude, like if he'd had one more complaint about his sciatica, I'm like, oh my God.
During sex, is that what you're talking about?
Like, oh God.
As he's fucking you and he's like, can you get on top? My back really hurts.
Stretch that out.
Hey, why don't we try and be more understanding and forgiving of our partners and plan
Not
ahead
that one though.
so that maybe he can take something for his sciatica, or you can plan the 27 positions that are okay for the sciatica, that they're going to get you off.
He did say, he was sweet though. He's like, oh, you take my breath away. Turns out I
You're
was
like
stepping on his oxygen feed.
Yeah.
Oops.
Quite literally, you killed the men.
Good for you for giving back.
Yeah.
I'm a helper. I'm a giver.
And not, eliminating certain members of our community. That's good. Very inclusive of you.
Yeah.
We appreciate
what I
it.
can.
I think it's important to remember that we're all sexual beings, and we're always going to be sexual beings. And Nana probably had lots of sex at some point, and she's probably still having sex, and good for her.
Yeah.
Right?
Good for her.
She's probably not driving from the airport to do it. But, between the roast beef and the breakfast or whatever that.
Oh, Lord. There's nothing wrong with roast beef. It is delicious, okay? And Arby's makes a hell of a sandwich, okay? I'm just saying. Nothing wrong with a little low-hanging fruit. That's all.
Of course not.
So Dr. Eddie found a very interesting piece of information that I found interesting, is that despite the stereotypes that 1 in 6 men report having low levels of a sex drive, like their testosterone, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying, so testosterone is the only sex drive that is sex drive in a man.
I mean, it's not the only anything, because
Okay.
we're all way more complicated than that. But it's certainly an important variable when it comes to it. And the same thing works for women, because women, of course, have testosterone as well. So what those levels are can be tested, and they have things that you can take as supplements.
Right.
All of those things. But that's only if it's a problem. You're sure it's a problem. Your doctor, your physician has decided that you've had that conversation. It's not something that you want to go on Amazon and order up because you think it might be wrong.
yourself up, right?
Absolutely not.
Can you overdo it on testosterone also?
Yes.
And what is a negative side
When
to
you get a mustache.
well, but for men,
women.
I'm saying for men. Can it?
Yeah. I mean, you don't want too much of anything. We're all really fine-tuned and specific. And so when we get too much of anything, things go wrong.
But that's what I'm saying. If someone were to do the at-home testosterone
You should
and
not.
they're shooting up,
You're
without-
not going to do that.
Yeah.
No one should be doing that.
Yeah.
It's something the physician has to check.
Okay.
The physician has to probably do it very slowly in very, very tiny amounts, not what someone's going to think off the internet.
And what is the danger behind doing too much?
Well, I mean, it can have different impacts on different systems in your body, not to mention erections and all of those things, but it could go horribly awry in a variety of things because that testosterone impacts hair growth, impacts vision, impacts all those things. So You don't want to mess with any of that stuff ever, period.
Okay.
That is for physicians.
Only see a doctor, yes.
And special physicians, right? Not every physician specializes in those kinds of things or even does those tests.
And it also goes the same way with estrogen and progesterone.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And that becomes even much more complicated because there's so many people taking estrogen on the DL
over the
counter or doing it from different countries, and regulating all of those things can be very, very dangerous, and bad things happen.
Yeah. But it can be very, like, I was anorexic, like, severely, and I had that axillary hair, and I had lost my period for 8 months.
Wow.
And the doctor, she put me on estrogen, progesterone, and it's just like a lotion, and it kickstarted my body back up. But yeah, then you have to regulate that, and then wean myself off of it. But yeah,
did you feel physical differences? Did you feel physical differences when
I was taking it?
Mm-hmm. I've never been on it.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, I could tell, like, I was getting healthier. I could feel that. But as far as, like, sleepy or having
like a hot flash or anything like that, like nothing like that.
No, but I mean, I'm sure that differs with everyone. But
because
I didn't personally.
When a woman does go into menopause, she's losing all that estrogen. Is that correct?
I mean,
it's a loss of the estrogen.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So that's what I'm thinking, like the hot flashes and something like that. I was wondering if, like, you getting to that level, like, had any, I don't know, repercussions to your body.
No, I mean, not me personally. But
I mean, there were, right? The clear repercussions were not having a period.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, those are all pretty significant changes to the human body that shouldn't occur.
Right.
That's why some of this stuff is really dangerous.
Yeah.
And the problem becomes not everybody has access to a doctor.
Right.
Right. And so sometimes our bodies on the outside don't match our bodies on the inside. And so that creates its own kind of separate, different issue. And so that's not necessarily what we're talking about here, but it is certainly a possibility and one that's very serious and important. And a physician should be having that conversation with that person as well.
Yeah.
So not to take away from the severity and importance of that type of issue. But some people do want to take more testosterone because they might be more manly, or they might be able to lift more weight, or they might be able to do things that they couldn't before.
Is there testosterone in steroids? Is that what the steroids are?
It depends on the steroid.
Okay. Oh.
So
steroids aren't necessarily a steroid. They're different.
They're different things.
I don't know anything about steroids.
They're not. Well, I mean, I'm not an expert in that area as well. My understanding is that there's a variety of different types, and they do different things.
And they can have a lasting effect.
Oh my
Case in
gosh,
point, the baseball player.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Steroids. Yeah.
My friends are like, why were you asking him that?
We're not shaming anybody.
Oh no, we're not. Just him specifically.
But I think the takeaway obviously is going to be that sex drives will ebb and flow throughout the course of our lives, throughout the course of our relationships. But unless you specifically see it as a problem and it's a problem between you and your spouse, then outside of that, you probably wouldn't need to do much about it. Right? That's just a part of some of our lives. Some of us are extra sexual, some of us are not. But if it is a problem in your life and you are expressing concern for your love life or your significant other, and maybe you don't feel like you're giving them all that you could be, then maybe do address a physician and go and get the proper levels that you need to get that sex drive up.
That may or may not do that, though.
It may or may not.
Right.
Okay.
And so because it's not the only variable at play here, so whatever this specific number is, does not equal 7 times a week.
Right.
Right. And so it's going to be psychosocial, environmental things that are going to impact all of that.
Of course.
And so if you're stressed with anxiety all of the time, no amount of testosterone is going to change that.
True.
And so we all have to be really, really careful when it comes to those kinds of things, because it's not just one thing ever. And we're obsessed as a society with a simple answer.
Yeah.
We want one thing, one pill is going to fix it all.
Right.
But that blue pill is not going to miraculously make you want your lover if you don't want your lover.
True.
Right? And so, you might be able to fake it a little bit, but it's not going to change that. And it's not going to make you want to have more sex or anything like that either. So.
Okay. And numbers don't mean a thing.
And numbers definitely don't mean a thing.
It's not going to change your character. It's not going to change who you are as a
But it also
person.
doesn't tell anybody about somebody's character too, right? So let's say Dorothy has had 6 partners.
Yeah.
That tells me absolutely nothing about if she's a nice person,
Right.
if she's a wonderful person, is she a caring lover, does she give head?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't tell me any of those things.
True.
Right? And so, like, what the hell does that number even mean? Let's say Dolores, right next to Dorothy, has 100 partners. That also tells me nothing about it.
Yeah.
Right?
So why are people obsessed with it?
Well, I mean, I can't answer for everybody, and there's probably a long history behind it. But there's certainly an obsession in our culture with purity and
Of women.
like, of women. Yeah,
There is no
absolutely.
question of the amount of partners that a man has had. That matters to
Yeah.
no
Well,
one.
it matters to the man if it matters to the woman that he's
Yeah.
trying to
Impress.
court right now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it also, men will tend to oversell the number of women that
Definitely.
they've had, and
Especially
women
if-
will try to undersell the
Yeah.
amount of partners that they
And it
have had.
depends who you're talking to, right? So
Right.
if the guys are with the guys,
yeah.
that's different. If the ladies are with the ladies, that's different.
Yeah.
If the guys are with the ladies, that's probably a really different conversation.
Yeah. Only 3 before you, and I was in love with all of them. Yeah.
Only one, but it
Yeah.
didn't count
Right.
for XYZ reason.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I don't know. That sounds horrible to me.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. But we shouldn't be lying about sex, and we certainly shouldn't be lying about our histories, because all of that stuff is really important
Yeah.
for the health,
Health, yeah.
for the health stuff. Not only can we have more agency and have all of those things, but also be more secure in the people that we are,
Yeah.
which brings us confidence, which makes us potentially better lovers.
Amen to that.
Right? And so I think all of those things are complicated, and it's not just one answer to anything.
Yeah.
But we don't like complicated.
Yeah. Oh, I like complicated.
Right?
I like it.
As a society, we don't like complicated answers. That's why we want like 16% say this.
Right.
But that 16%, boy, do I have questions about that 16% and what even questions were asked in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So there was no conclusion. No, just kidding. No conclusion to this show.
Right.
No, I think the conclusion is it will ebb and flow at the end of the day. Maybe change some things that are in your life. Maybe try and get away from some of the stressors that are in your life. Plan for things. Plan for, some sexual getaways.
Go bag.
Get your to-go bag. Get your tote bag. Get your tote bag ready
Lube,
with your
sheets, yes.
Lube, your change of clothes. I don't know what else you're going to need in there. Some
Inoculation.
condoms. Yeah.
It's going to be different for everybody.
That's true.
Right,
That's
right,
true.
right.
Maybe a little pillow to set your knees down on. I would love that. Just a little soft surface.
Or we could carry them for our partners.
There you go.
Whatever.
All right, guys. Kristi, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on KristiMcHugh.com, Kristi McHugh Comedian on Instagram, and a funny girl on my YouTube channel.
Ooh, because she is a very, very funny girl. Thank you, Dr. Eddie, for your public health perspective and all the research you do for this show. All right, guys. Until next time, adios.
Ciao, ciao.